Right, this one. What else?
Not you, okay? Go over there. I just want to talk to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. First, we must apologize for the late start, as a meeting we had with various stakeholders went a little bit over time. So again, we must apologize. Thank you very much for coming to the Office of the Prime Minister on this important press conference, looking at the issue of the initiative to deal with plastic, styrofoam, and straws, etc. We will be having statements from the Minister as well as various supporting persons here. We have Mr. Audley Gordon from the NSWMA, Mr. Peter Knight from NEPA, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Mrs. Audrey Sewell, Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, Minister Darrell Vaz, Mattis Amuda, who is a senator who has been a part of the team dealing with this issue. Won't be long. I'll just invite Mr. Vaz at this moment to make an opening remark.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, permanent secretaries, Senator Samuda, other heads of agencies. First of all, again, let me apologize, but unlike Robert, I will tell you where the blame comes from. We had a delegation from the president of the PSOJ, the outgoing president of the JCC, and the president of the JMEA, just raising some issues as it relates to some of their membership. And that delayed us for some time trying to find amicable solutions. So this morning I wish to start by thanking members of the media who have made themselves available. We appreciate your interest in this issue and thank you for partnering with us to give the public important information on this matter. January 1st, 2019 represents an important date in Jamaica's fight against environmental degradation and against the scourge of plastic pollution that affects not only Jamaica, but indeed the globe. This morning I address concerns which have been raised in the public domain regarding the impending measures aimed at particularly plastic packaging materials. I wish to remind all of us that change is never easy. Everyone thinks of change in the world, but no one thinks of changing themselves. This morning I stand before you humbled and proud. I wish to once again thank all the stakeholders and all the citizens who are prepared to join with us on this mission to protect and improve Jamaica, land we love. The country will recall on the 17th of September 2018, I announced on behalf of the government of Jamaica a policy position on the regulation of specific categories of plastic packaging materials. In this regard, a ban was announced on the importation, manufacturing, distribution, and use of single-use plastic carrier bags of a specified dimension, namely those bags commonly referred to as scandal or t-shirt bags. And that was 24 inches by 24 inches and under. The importation and manufacture of expanded polystyrene finished product used in the food and beverage industry, and the importation and manufacture of disposable plastic drinking straws. Additionally, exemptions to the ban on these various categories of packaging were also announced, as the development of an exemption mechanism surrounding the policy. Since that time, several public sector agencies, including my own Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, National Environment and Planning Agency, Ministry of Commerce, Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, have been working feverishly to effect the government policy, including the implementation of a robust public education and awareness campaign to influence behavioral change. The stakeholder engagement has included meetings with several of the affected groups. As I said before, Jamaica Manufacturers Exporters Association, Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, National Consumer League of Jamaica, individual manufacturers, importers and distributors, entrepreneurs involved in importation and distributive trade, service clubs, schools, as well as community groups across Jamaica, and most recently, the Cleaner Editorial Forum on Friday, December 21st. The government is extremely pleased with the overwhelming national reaction and response to the policy announcement, which has been extremely positive. Support is estimated at 90%, with the coming from the sectors group, despite some concerns, stakeholders and consumers in general, some of which I hope to address this morning ahead of the ban. A critical element related to the implementation of the ban is the Jamaica Information Service NEPA executed program of public dialogue consultations with sector groups to explain all aspects of the policy announcement, and a public education campaign to sensitize and educate the public, as well as to develop an exemption mechanism surrounding the policy. Effective immediately, all stocks of single-use plastic bags of dimensions 24 by 24 and thickness of 1.2 mils or less, and disposable plastic straws should be embargoed by the manufacturers, importers, and distributors in a manner as prescribed by the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority. It is recommended that retailers contact their suppliers regarding unused inventories of these items to facilitate the government's determination with respect to the type and method of compensation that will be applied. Note, there are some businesses which have yet to receive their alternative packaging supplies and have small amounts in stock. We have seen evidence of their shipping arrival to become available in late January to February. Based on international trade system, to avoid breakdown and dislocation in the system, we are allowing these companies that have small stocks to use them until their supplies arrive. It is important to note that NEPA established a dedicated email address, policy on plastic ban at nepa.gov.jm, and a hotline, 876-285-8531, both to provide information and to communicate with the general public. I'm advised to date that the agency up to Friday last week had received 160 emails, all of which had responses, and also 120 calls to the hotline, which also were appropriately answered and guidance provided. This represented the first tool to public communication. And just to say that this morning I was advised that on Friday alone, there was over 70 calls received by the hotline. I don't need to say any more about how we operate in terms of last minute. The public education campaign has included virtually all mainstream media with channels with public service announcement and advertising throughout the period, and approximately $30 million has been spent. And let me just say that in something like this, there's always room for improvement, and I want to commit that the public education campaign will intensify and continue. And just this morning we were able to design a methodology of how we can make this happen in terms of the necessary resources. As one will recall, what was announced in September was indeed a phased implementation of this ban, which will span from 2019 to 2021. As such, a public education campaign, as I said, will continue through this period. Some of these important facets of the next phase of the public education will include meetings and engagement in the market district, where reusable bags to the tune of 30,000 provided by government will be distributed by local government representatives and questions fielded. And just to say that coming out of the meeting this morning, one of the positive things was that the private sector will partner with us to try and see how many more bags we can get that can be distributed free of cost throughout the island to allow for the transition to be that much easier, especially for those less fortunate who may not be in a position to be able to purchase a bag that they can continue to use. Engagement on the public transportation system, an extensive digital media campaign, and on continued advertisement placements in the traditional media. Today, I'm pleased to announce that 2 ministerial orders have been gazetted on the 24th of December, so you can see that I was working through Christmas. One under the Trade Act and the other under the Natural Resources and Conservation Authority Act. These orders provide regulatory framework to support the policy measure announced. The maximum fine under the Trade Act, Trade Plastic Packing Material Order 2018 is $2 million, while under the NRCA, Plastic Packaging Prohibiting Order 2018, the fine is $50,000. Both orders carry a term of imprisonment of 2 years respectively. Let me just say that laws with teeth are always necessary, but in this particular case, we are hoping that the cooperation, collaboration, and partnership among every stakeholder and every citizen of Jamaica will give us the buy-in that we need to make this successful. I do not believe that a big stick approach will have the required results rather than a partnership and a change in our culture. I think that to me, would be the most important thing coming out of this messaging this morning. Since September, or since the September announcement, imports of plastic bags have been to the tune of 850 million Jamaican dollars. We are unable to decipher of what of that amount would be affected by the ban based on the fact that the Asecuda code is a generic code that covers all plastic bags. So I couldn't say how much of those bags that have been imported after the ban would be below the size that has been banned. Customs has given the assurance that the imports which come under this code in the Asecuda will be flagged for physical inspection going forward. So that's an important aspect, because the issue of the bags entering Jamaica to get into the trade, we are going to be in a position to monitor that very, very closely, and hopefully we will have a very good record in terms of being able to monitor, physically inspect to make sure that none of the banned bags are imported into the country. The orders will be enforced, obviously, by a number of regulatory agencies working together and independently, which they do for other areas. And I make this point because there's no need for a designated enforcement team. There are already teams that exist that do this on a day-to-day basis. These entities already interact with the distributive trade and manufacturing sector extensively and daily. At this juncture, I wish to make the point that the success of this policy is dependent on a partnership between each and every citizen, not based on fines and prosecution. We all will need to do our part. The policy initiative seeks to secure our collective future by taking an all-important step to protect the environment. Fines, punitive measures without willingness for us to confront what we have allowed to become a cultural norm simply won't see us achieving what these policies have set out. What I'm asking this morning, Jamaica, is for partnership. Partnership, partnership, and partnership. An issue which has been raised regarding whether or not the policy implementation has been rushed should be aware of the global context. Let me just remind all of us gathered here and those listening that in July 2016, Senator Matthew Samuda, who should be commended for this policy initiative. Usually ministers like to take all the kudos. In this case, I give it all to Senator Samuda, and I have to give him a big round of applause. A private member's motion in the Senate in July 2016. It was passed in September 2016. Signal clearly sent. A working group was set up, ordered by cabinet, for everybody to be engaged. So the engagement started from the end of 2016. In my sectoral debate of 2017, I spoke to plastic packaging. In 2018, I made a statement. It is not if, it is when. And in September 2018, we announced the ban. Ladies and gentlemen, that is 2.5 years. And there's nobody in Jamaica that was listening that would not have known that this ban was imminent. So when I hear people criticizing the short time frame in terms of the implementation from September to January, I ask that everybody keep that in mind. Not that I'm blaming anybody, I'm just saying that it was signaled loud and clear. I'm also pleased to advise that the domestic market has responded positively to the policy announcement, with a number of companies and individuals developing and providing alternatives to single-use plastics and straws. In fact, the policy has triggered great interest from indigenous manufacturers to be in the forefront of creating alternatives to the banned products. The government is also pleased that a number of private sector companies have purchased and made available alternatives such as reusable bags, not only to their customers, but also to the wider public. I think that we have some of them on display, but since we started so late, we'll save that for the last. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, change is never easy. And people ask, what was the right time? Or when is the right time? As far as I'm concerned, personally, I think the right time was years ago, but we didn't do it then. We're doing it now. More importantly, and I want to say this sincerely, you notice that I'm not in my usual strident mode, because I feel so passionately about what this can do for the future generations and what we can do if we all work together. The critical thing, there were some calls that came in for a delay in the implementation of the ban. And I thought about it long and hard. To have delayed tomorrow's announcement would have undermined severely the credibility and the intent of the government to institute this policy. I think that what we have been able to do based on this morning's meeting has been able to address some of the possible dislocation that could have been caused with the transition of packaging that would be coming in as against what is here now. Again, it's not a blame game. As far as I'm concerned, yes, alternative packaging is here, and some persons possibly could have gotten it here in time for the ban, but international trade, you never know with ordering and shipping, etc. So we don't want to go there. What we want to say is that we are prepared to work diligently and hard to make this transition as seamless and effective, while making sure that the intent of the policy and the integrity of the policy stands. I want to just make another comment as it relates to PET bottles and the deposit refund scheme, which I had mentioned at the last press conference in September, to just give you an update. And also to indicate that we have with us here today Mr. Audley Gordon from the Solid Waste Agency and Mr. Tanny Shirley, who chairs the enterprise team for the waste to energy, who are critical because the plastic ban is only one component of the government's direction and policies as it relates to waste management and waste energy. And I'm sure that persons would have questions that would be outside of my remit, so I've invited them here. But just to say, in short order, the government also hopes to announce measures to be taken to regulate plastic bottles, particularly PET bottles. These policy measures being instituted by the government with the support of several stakeholders, as well as the general public, is in line with the global thrust to minimize single-use plastic packaging. The indiscriminate disposal of single-use plastic, which can take up to several decades to degrade, has been known to have a negative effect on the environment, particularly our marine and coastal environments, which play a key role in the country's economic development as well as the health and social well-being of the population. I therefore take this opportunity to call upon all Jamaicans to support this important initiative, which will assist in safeguarding public health as well as conserving our environment. Our dependency as a people on plastic and styrofoam has become an addiction which we must break, a cultural addiction. But like all addictions, it takes time. So it will foolhardy for me to stand here and believe that it will happen overnight. What I can say is that as of January 1st, 2019, the process will start to reverse the trend of increasing the dependency and usage of plastic and styrofoam, significantly reducing and eventually phasing out sooner than later. Importantly, the success of this landmark policy will be dependent on the cooperation and buy-in of every single citizen of Jamaica doing and playing their part. This policy is long overdue, and I stand here not as a minister, but as a proud Jamaican citizen doing my part at ensuring we preserve Jamaica's environment for the benefit of generations to come. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that there's a number of questions and clarifications that you will have, and just to reiterate that the support for this policy has been overwhelming. I think it's the first time that I've seen such a collaboration in terms of an acceptance of the policy. And I think every well-thinking Jamaican is in support of it, and anyone who is not will go down on the wrong side of history when it is written. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, I say that tomorrow the ban on plastics, single-use plastics, will be effective. There are some issues that were raised this morning that we're going to work through in relation to stock that's in the trade as against the transition. But in terms of importation, manufacturing, and distribution, those are over as of tomorrow, January 1st. Let me clarify, although it was said in September, the importation of polystyrene, which is what makes the styrofoam, is effective, the ban is effective tomorrow. The distribution based on existing stocks will continue to January 2020. That decision was taken again in consultation with the stakeholders and to make sure that time was given for retooling and also limiting the loss or the possible loss of jobs. 2021 is the deadline for certain straws which are attached to the Tetra Pak and pouches, and that was again because of the availability internationally by the suppliers in terms of the timelines that they were working with. So we are constrained in some of what we wanted to do, but we have tried our best to work it so that, again, and let me reiterate, I can't say it enough, January 1st, 2019 is a landmark historic occasion for one reason: changing the dependency and the increased use of plastics completely to the opposite side, which is to decrease over time and eventually phase out uses of plastic. So no one in their right mind can believe that come tomorrow morning or January 2nd or the 3rd, all of a sudden there will be an evaporation of plastics and plastic bags. Yes? It's just not possible. What we can say definitively that the policy will do is to put us in the right trajectory, which is going in the direction of decrease rather than increase. And therefore I ask for your patience and most of all, your assistance in us working this policy through. And when I say assistance, it can't be up to government alone to try and help educate the people. Public relations and public education, the trade, the retailers, the distributors, the manufacturers, the news media, any help that you can give to get this word and to change the mindset and the culture will go towards us changing and having a better environment sooner rather than later. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask, just before question and answers, and then we go on to the solid waste and to the things that are above my pay grade. I'm just going to ask for brief comments from President of the PSOJ, Chamber of Commerce, JMEA, and then we'll go straight into questions.
Morning all. Compliments of the season. A good friend of mine, Glenn Christian, Dr. Glenn Christian, always says, never let perfect be the enemy of good. This is a good step. We are in support of it. It is not perfect. We are and have been anxious to see that especially our Small Business Association and our MSME Alliance members do not suffer hardship. We think that with the assistance of the minister and the senator and the government, we have arrived at a compromise. So we are in support, and we hope that we can get everybody on board to support this very significant and life-changing initiative. So the only other thing I would say is that if this works, I'm going to enlist the help of Minister Vaz with our crime and citizen security initiative. Thank you.
Good morning. Well, I think we would agree that we want not only a safe and prosperous Jamaica, but an environmentally sustainable Jamaica. And I think this is what this initiative is all about. It is a start of a new Jamaica, and this will require all of us to make changes in the way we live and the way we do things. It will require us to do things differently and to ensure that we leave a better Jamaica for future generations. And the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce calls on all Jamaicans to participate and to be proactive in making this initiative a success. If it is a success, Jamaica will benefit for it. And I think we need to realize, as was said by Minister, that success is a journey, it's not a destination. And this is a start. There are goods in trade, You know, there are plastic bags in trade, and it will take time to work itself through the system. But this is the start of the journey. So everybody do your part, and I know at the end of the day, we will have a better Jamaica. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Hard to say much more than my two colleagues have said, other than to say that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And I think today is a watershed moment for us as Jamaicans. I look forward to seeing this initiative work, and the JMEA supports wholeheartedly what is being done here. I also thank the government for listening to us this morning and for taking the concerns of business into account and balancing between business interests and the environment. You have our 100% support, and we look forward to it working. Thank you.
So we're going to ask for you to just raise your hand. We're going to do the question and answers, and then after that, we will invite Mr. Audley Gordon and then Mr. Shirley to give you an update. And to say, ladies and gentlemen, that after going and sitting down for a while and putting a challenge out to the private sector, the government has ceded the distribution of 30,000 bags, which will be given, as indicated earlier, throughout Jamaica and through the markets, etc. And basically, we really want to get to at least 250,000 in the very, very immediate short term. So I'm asking President Mitchell, outgoing President Watson, and President Siaga, if we could do that and get those bags printed in short order, I believe that will go a far way of alleviating and helping the transition in order for people to be able to have bags to access products and produce ongoing. So you just raise your hand with the questions and we'll answer them as best as possible.
Morning, the name is Herman Green, TVJ Newsroom. All right, let me stand. I think the main concern was getting substitutes for plastic bags. What we realized is that persons have been asking about what would be used in terms of garbage disposal. Apparently, plastic bags have always been the easiest thing to use to containerize your garbage. Mr. NSWMA, he hasn't spoken as yet, but I hope he can address that. What plan is in place? How do you think it will affect your operations in terms of containerization? And also, what is the plan to deal with that?
Well, I'll take that first and pass that to NSWMA with Mr. Gordon. What we've banned are bags that are 24 inches by 24 inches and below. Bags that are primarily used for food safety and food packaging have not been banned. What also hasn't been banned is garbage bags, labeled as such and sized above 24 by 24 inches. So when we first put this forward, a big discussion ensued about whether we should use the British model, which was to put on the 5 pence type charge at the point of distribution of bags. What you'd see with this particular policy is that it's a bit of a hybrid. What we've done is remove the bags that were wantonly distributed in a way that we don't feel was appropriate and said, well, if you need bags for containerization, you buy those, in a sense. If you also wish to use some of the bags that are not banned by way of bread bags, etc., for smaller containers to containerize initially some smaller loads of waste, you can go ahead with that. Well, let me pass that over to Audley.
I would ask Audley to answer when he gets up there so we don't get disjointed. Let's just stay on this particular topic here. One other thing, as you mentioned not a while ago, Herman, the question was raised with me this morning. So you ban 24 by 24 inches and below. So what happens when they start to import 25 inches by 25 inches or 30 by 30? And the bottom line is that the policy will be under constant review, and whatever changes need to be made will be made. But the bottom line is that going forward, they won't have the luxury of the announcement and the timelines. So it is, in essence, to watch and see how the market responds, and the government will always act accordingly at short notice, which may not be advantageous to those who would be trying to find a way to get around what we are trying to achieve. Question, there's a lady at the back there. Okay.
Good morning, Sashana Small from Business Access TV. My question is, when will the fines be implemented? Will it be after 2021?
No, the fines are with immediate effect, but the area of concentration for those fines for immediate would be for the distribution, manufacturing, and importation, because that's where the source of the majority of the bags into the market would be. Because of what we mentioned earlier, based on discussions this morning in relation to bags that are in the trade, and the issue of the transition into alternative packaging and the timelines in terms of the shipping and all of that, then those will be worked out with NEPA to make sure that the necessary bags within the trade now, which are small quantities relatively, will be monitored. But there will be a mechanism for bags to be returned to the distributor or manufacturer or importers once new packaging is available to the particular business. So it's kind of tweaked based on what was discussed this morning, but it will make sure that there's no dislocation in the short term, meaning the next few weeks.
Good morning, Yanil Wood, TBC Radio. So while we were walking in, a media colleague and I were wondering what will happen to the garbage. So I know you're going to allow Mr. Gordon to speak to it, but sir, I hear you say you're going to work, I think the word was diligently or something to that effect. I think we have to work much faster between now and tomorrow morning because, one, I know the bags for garbage that we're supposed to buy are not being banned, but generally persons use the 24 by 24 going down. I am foreseeing, on top of the fact that, please excuse me guys, but it's the truth, Jamaicans are not that clean. And I'm choosing my words kindly because I'm being trained to speak better. We are not that clean. We don't think it's important to be clean. We're going to have a huge garbage problem, sir. Because already, I see my neighbors walking past me with the garbage in their hands to throw in the bins. When his trucks come and the thing lifts it up in the air, all that garbage goes on the ground. We're going to have a huge problem. So I don't want you to change the date. But we're going to need a whole heap of education between now and in the morning. And you know how our minds are. We don't like change. What are we going to do with all the garbage that we already have on the ground and know that we don't have any bags to put them in? Because I cannot buy garbage bags all the time. I am working and I can't imagine those persons who are going to not have any bags.
So I'm going to ask Arnold to address it when he comes up, but just to indicate again, the public education is key. And again, we're going to partner with the private sector and the stakeholders to try and increase it, because we're going to ask them to assist in terms of their own public education campaigns. But it is a culture change. It is going to take some time, but we've got to start the process, and that's what we're doing tomorrow morning. So yes, I can fully agree with you that there will be transitional problems, there will be dislocation, but as a government, we're going to do everything to make sure that is minimized and it's for as short a period of time as possible. We'll ask Arnold to speak to it again in detail because it's a very critical aspect, the collection of the garbage after tomorrow based on what transpires. You want to speak?
Good afternoon. Javon Keys, Business Access Television. My question is deviating a bit from the plastic ban, but it's on the deposit refund system. Just want to find out how far along that process is of establishing that system. If it's
that was another reason for the delay this morning because a presentation was made, and I can say that a presentation was made by the stakeholders, led by the Jamaica manufacturers, exporters, private sector, and the Chamber of Commerce, and work will start on that tomorrow, and within the first quarter of 2019. And when I say first quarter, probably sooner in the first quarter than later, probably by the end of January, a full announcement will be made in relation to the actual start of a deposit refund scheme, which will be phased in and fully operational in short order. And if you need any details, I'd prefer you get it from the Manufacturers Association, as they are the ones who are leading it, and they'll be able to think. And it's a private sector driven initiative. Okay, after this.
Good afternoon. Nika Lewis from Nationwide News. I am a bit confused as it relates to the remuneration aspect. You spoke about persons bringing back their bags and such to distributors, etc. Are these persons going to be remunerated? Is there going to be any form of remuneration, and how will that work?
Okay, so there's two things that we need to do to make the policy effective in short order. One is to stop the imports, which I indicated earlier how we will do that and monitor that. And secondly is to stop the manufacturing and the distribution. So as of tomorrow, that will stop. However, there is stock in the trade. And what we are sending the message out is that the stock in trade for those persons who get their new packaging material and have existing stock left, those can be returned to either the manufacturer or the distributor, and they will be given a credit note. And we, in turn, as government, will work out a mechanism for compensation to the manufacturer or the distributor for him to be able, or that for that company to be able to get their compensation, whichever methodology is finalized in short order by the government through my ministry. So again, that in itself also is taking the excess out of the trade and leaving just the bare minimum during the transition period based on orders that have been placed. So again, it's a twofold attempt, but it will have significant impact in drying up the supply of the bags that are banned. Okay. Just introduce yourself.
Stephen DeCastris from DFL Importers. We have a full range of alternatives, but also, before I get to that, we are also distributors for Rhino garbage bags. We are also distributors for Rhino garbage bags, which everyone knows is the premium garbage bag in Jamaica. Well, we all know that. Now, our small size garbage bag is 20 by 22. And this is a proper garbage bag. And we can have it also in a green biodegradable garbage bag. We can bring them. Two questions. One is, what happens to the supermarkets or the wholesalers tomorrow morning who have a 20 by 22 small garbage bag, black or green? And then we'll have to carry it up. It's below 20 by 24. The garbage bags. So we need some clarity on that. We will manufacture above the 20 by 24. And if there's anything we can do to help you all, because we fully support what you're doing. That's one question. But before we finish, on a table outside, I have a full range of every kind of alternative, which we'd like everybody to look at. so you can answer.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I think the other aspect is that there is a lot of alternative packaging that is currently here, and the bottom line is that I think basically it will take some time for the companies that are now distributing or manufacturing these to be able to get them into the wider public in terms of alternative use. So again, it's part of the transition, but it's good to know that there is alternative material here, landed in Jamaica, and again, this is all market driven. Remember that we had bags before, the plastic bags, shopping bags. So this is another phase, and I believe truly that the innovative Jamaican or Jamaicans will take use of an opportunity to start new businesses. And as I indicated in September, there are windows at the DBJ and the Exim Bank in relation to funding for businesses that will produce alternative packaging for the banned items. I'm going to ask Mr. Audley Gordon, because I know that all the questions are for Audley, thankfully, to come. And then after he gives you an overview, I'm going to ask Mr. Litterton Shirley, who is the chairman of the enterprise team for the waste to energy, which is also another hot button item in terms of the overall management of waste policy for Jamaica. So Gordon, you want to go up to that?
Thank you very much, Minister. Good morning. Okay. Morning, everyone. Audley Gordon, National Solid Waste Management Authority, Executive Director. Firstly, we appreciate the challenges that could come from the ban, as we are aware that a high percentage of the population uses the small, what they call scandal bags to package their garbage. In acknowledging that, we have started already to communicate to them alternatives, and I'm happy to hear the manufacturer speaking, and I'm sure that there will be other competitors as this ban take effect, that there's not a ban without alternatives. There are alternatives that you can use. We prefer when you put your garbage in a drum, though. And the small drums are receptacles that can be used. And we encourage that. But there's something that I need to get leaving here this morning, is for us at our level, media, business, environment, government, to hold people more to account, to talk about personal responsibility. We communicate that better solid waste management gives us a healthier Jamaica. We want people to understand that they are responsible for the solid waste that they generate. And so they just don't generate the garbage and then just throw it out so somebody will take it up. But they manage that garbage at source so that it can be then taken from them in an orderly manner. Ahead of this ban, we realized that scheduling from the NSWMA would be very important. And that means people should know when their trucks are coming. They know when their pickup dates. They should know that they can put out their garbage and have it removed in a timely manner. And the government has been very supportive, and we are now in the procurement process seeking to lease 100 new trucks that should be on the road in budget year 2019-20. So with those additional trucks, we will have better scheduling, a more efficient and timely pickup of solid waste, and that should help where they pick up the slack where there are excess garbage lying around. We hope not, though, because there are alternatives that can be used. There are biodegradable bags which are already on the market, and I'm sure that more will come on the market. You can box your garbage, put it in a box. We will take it up just the same. And importantly, over 60% of what we know transport to a disposal facility is compostable. Our last garbage characterization exercise showed us that somewhere in the region of 67% is compostable. We believe that a more robust campaign, a more robust public relations campaign, communication campaign, to get people into composting will significantly help reduce the garbage, because we are big on reduction. We want to reduce garbage. We don't just want to be thinking of how much more bags of garbage we can pick up. We want to think of how much less we can pick up, because if we get into composting, we could reduce significantly. Also, separation of garbage. In 1920, we intend to roll out, beginning in select communities and then gradually spread it right across Jamaica, where we will be taking your plastics twice per month. We will be asking you to put your plastic in a separate bag, and we'll come for it twice per month. A separate truck will come for it. So we'll have some area of cooperation from the people. We look at how it succeeds, and then we move it out. We have been asked to do this, incidentally. Several communities are asking us to do this, and we will be doing just that. So in all, the NSWMA is very supportive of this move. We are in a better place as a country for this move, because there's untold damage being done to the environment by plastic, and this move is serving to move the discourse in a different direction, and we're happy to support it wholeheartedly. Minister, do I? Yes. Who? You speak. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, okay, cool.
Sorry. Ooh, sorry. I know you said we can box some of the things, Mr. Gordon, but not everything would be appropriate to place in a box.
Right.
One. Two, I live in a strata complex. I don't think NSWMA is responsible for our collection. Is there any way you can help us? Because I know where I live, I'm going to have the problem I alluded to before.
So the strata collection, the strata people will deal with the private
We normally have a private person come in, but I can tell you I left the garbage mounted up to here this morning in every skip.
So that's a breakdown with your private things. So talk to me after you about that.
Okay. Two, boxes. You said you want us to do compose. We can't do that where I live either, because I live in a concrete jungle.
So there's no one-size-fits-all, and we accept that there are some communities, some living arrangements, especially apartments and so on, where that might not be readily applicable in terms of the composting, but there are huge areas of Jamaica where composting is more than accessible.
Okay.
Hey, Dion Jax Miller, RJR Gleaner Group. Couple of questions. First, just a point of clarification, Mr. Gordon. You say you prefer when people put their garbage in a drum. What do you mean? Because there's nothing that contributes more to trash around neighborhoods than dogs strewing garbage from drums. So what exactly do you mean?
No, what have happened, I'm not so sure the concern about the dogs, because if you put the drum in a secure, like you build a little grill area, you put your drum in there, you have a cover on your drum, and so on. Now we have had good success with going in and clearing those drums. The bags are easily torn, And that's when you put the garbage in the bags, that the cats, the dogs, and all that can easily tear it and get it out just the same. But so we order the drums.
What is the organization's plan to deal with the situations in which there is a resistance to the purchase of bags?
Public
Because
education.
two ways in which people have disposed of garbage before the scandal bags is to throw the garbage in front of the house, in which case the garbage men have to spend 15 minutes shoveling into the truck, and two, to burn. So what is the plan?
A robust public education program, and it will require the support of the media, because the truth is that we have to get people to be more responsible at source. This is not just a government thing. This is a thing for Jamaica, and every one of us have to play our part.
All right. Any public relations campaign has success only so far, no further. What is the plan to deal with the people who are not complying?
Enforcement.
Meaning what?
Meaning that we'll
Because right now there's no.
Meaning, no, there are enforcement. We've been writing over 100 tickets per month, as I said to you on a program recently. And in the new year, we put in more boots on the ground, thanks to TEF. We had just acquired 2 new 4x4 pickups that we will be dispatching to rural Jamaica. We intend to get some more. And we'll be in every nook and cranny looking out for perpetrators. And where the gentle suasion don't work, we'll have to enforce.
And finally, the collection of plastic separately that you mentioned, is that still a concept, or is that something, a firm plan with an implementation, communities, geographic areas, and so on? Can you tell us anything more about that?
It's a little bit beyond concept there. Now we have pretty much tidied up the whole documentation of the process, and it's a matter of the funding issues, which is I put it in the 1920 budget. Just the funding now, and we move forward.
Mr. Gordon, before you go, sir, I know that you are speaking strongly about the issue of enforcement, and one of my concerns rests with the fact that if you're ticketing people, as you say, are you currently ticketing people, firstly?
I said that just now, over 100 per month.
Oh, okay.
Should we be doing more? Sure. But
okay.
based on our current staff levels, that's what we're doing.
Okay, I asked that question because where I reside on the boulevard, Washington Boulevard, we still have persistent smoke at nights. Sometimes can't even open your windows and doors. So I'm wondering if anybody has been ticketed for any of those offenses because there's still smoke.
Those are larger issues that were dealt with in a multi-stakeholders meeting at NEPA, and I'm sure that Mr. Knight is here, can speak to where the process is at as we speak. And I know that there were some public education activity going on there, and that was the first phase. I know that there are other things to be done, but there's a multi-stakeholders conversation there.
Hi, good afternoon again. Good morning. Well, afternoon, my apologies. We have one last statement to be made from Mr. Tanny Shirley, who is in charge of the enterprise team dealing with issues related to the waste-to-energy approach that the government is taking. Mr. Shirley?
Good morning, everyone. First, let me use the opportunity to congratulate the government on this bold step that for the future will define us all as being responsible Jamaicans. The Prime Minister mandated an enterprise team to look at the divestment of the comprehensive management of waste in Jamaica. And I say in Jamaica, across the length and breadth of Jamaica. This enterprise team was set up under the guidance of 4 pillars: technical approach, environment approach, social approach, and a financial approach. We took on the guidance of the World Bank to do a comprehensive feasibility study of Jamaica waste stream as it stands. That report was completed in 2017. Since then, we have analyzed it. We have looked at all the nuances. We have had engagement with various private sector and government agencies. We have engaged the International Finance Corporation, IFC, to look at taking this feasibility study to a transactional level. That has been done. We are presently now doing a market sounding with several major investors across the world, some 14 interest group who has shown interest in our waste management, meaning five important factors really: to design, build, finance, manage, and operate Jamaica waste stream, taking it into a component of, very important, as guided by the Prime Minister, to ensure a waste-to-energy component. The market sounding has just started 2 weeks ago. Due to the holiday seasons, most of the interested group is in the process of responding to IFC. When we have achieved that response, we will be very much au fait as to their level of interest and what is it they are expecting in order to support the waste management system as defined under the 4 pillars. When that result would have been correlated by IFC, then we'll take it to the government to have a look at it. The government will then decide how and what to act upon in terms of the request from the 14 investors. And then it will go to Cabinet. Cabinet will make a decision on it. Then it will go circulate to the various agencies for support. And then subsequent to that, effectively, we'll then do our RFP that invite tendering to these 14 interest group and others to present a appropriate tender to the government for it to act. We anticipate that this will be completed within the midsection of 2019, and hoping that the latter part of 2019 will see a contract being able to be executed. It is a very important decision because it will show exactly the more modern environmental, social impact that Jamaica would be experiencing in waste collection, waste conversion, give the National Solid Waste the opportunity to be a regulator as they were intended to be from their inception, and giving private sector the opportunity to manage, collect our waste on a timely basis, and to do the necessary investment that would be required for a proper collection system, timely collections. It's required, for instance, a typical waste-to-energy plant that can possibly generate 30 megawatt of energy to the grid could cost you $250 million US. So we are looking at investors with deep pockets who have those capacities to manage our waste, collect it, convert it, keeping in line with proper environmental, looking at the social impact, communicate properly across the length and breadth of Jamaica. Because presently, as good as job as National Solid Waste is doing, after 1 million ton of garbage generated each year in Jamaica, only 60 to 70% is being collected. So there is a lot of waste to be able to ensure that Jamaica, as one young lady alluded to, don't be seen as not a clean country or clean individuals, but we can manage our waste and it can be a financially viable operation. So this is where we are at this point. We will continue to update the country as to the progress we are making, and hoping that this waste to energy too and comprehensive management of our waste to the private sector will be seen as a proper, appropriate, and successful step in ensuring that Jamaica becomes clean from the length and breadth, from every nook and cranny in Jamaica. Waste will be collected in a sustainable, financial, and environmentally friendly manner. Also to say that the mandate given to the enterprise team in all of this is that the dump at Riverton City will be relocated. And I mentioned dump. Any form of site now will be sanitary site. With the conversion of waste, therefore, you will not need this large parcel of land or collecting processes for waste, but you'll have proper landfill from residual of any waste stream that is, whether it is biological or thermodynamic processes. So whichever system of waste that is used for conversion, there will be some element of residual waste, and those wastes will be properly defined to sanitary landfills so that our waste and all the problems we are associated to fire, all these environmental pollution systems that affects our people, whether you're on Harbour View or Boulevard or wherever you are in New Kingston, will be a thing of the past. So we're looking towards a new dawn in which our waste can be properly managed, and national solid waste will become an efficient regulator for the system to ensure that we conform to the laws governing Jamaica and all the other initiatives that the government is so boldly taking now, that Jamaica will be a proper place for all of us. Thank you very much.
I suspect Mr. Carley would like to ask you a question. Mr. Shirley, could you step back?
Actually, it's not so much for you. It's for Mr. Gordon, Mr. Knight. I am disturbed when I hear about the time that the waste-to-energy solution is going to come, gentlemen. And every morning I see the pall of air pollution that hangs over the western end of the city. Sometimes think it's only me see it. I do not see how it is fair to ask the people who live there, and it is thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, that they just have to suck it up until whatever time this happens. And we've been hearing about waste to energy, in fairness, for at least 15 years. So what I want to know, I don't think the answer on enforcement was adequate. I want to know from the enforcement agencies, NEPA and National Solid Waste Management, what is going to be done if people who are used to having free garbage bags begin to burn their garbage, and what is to be done about the flagrant disregard of the laws that is seen every day along that St. Catherine corridor, including by people who are building roads.
First of all, I hope that nobody start burning their garbage because they're not being permitted to use the scandal bags after there are so much alternatives around. What that would mean is that they are not joining with the Clean Jamaica campaign and trying to improve the environment. And the environment, Ms. Macaulay, the health of the environment and the strength of the integrity of the environment can't be just in the hands of a few people. It should be in all of us. It should be all of us who are concerned. So I hope that people don't see the ban as an opportunity to then start doing illegal stuff like burning. What I said about enforcement is all that I could say now. We have a team of enforcers that we are trying to improve that team to get it up to speed with probably the new demands that will come. we have gotten some vehicles. We intend to get more, but I would not want to overpromise here. I won't say things to you that I know I won't be able to do. And I am sure that with the limited resource that we do have, we are doing a fair bit of enforcement, and we intend to step that up in 2019-20 budget cycle. As it relates to the corridor, I too live in Kingston. I live over in Meadowbrook, so I feel the effects of the illicit burning that take place there. So how happy I was to be a part of that multi-stakeholder meeting, because this thing happens at night in a rough terrain, and I'm sure that some of the things that were discussed at that meeting are now being, I've seen at least one of the suggestions put in place. I know that there will be other follow-up activities. As to wave a magic wand and stop it overnight, I would love that, but I'm not in a position to do that now. That meeting was in March, is it? March? Yes. But Mr. Knight is here, and I'm sure he will elaborate more as to where we are.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just consulted with Minister Vaz. He tells me that the cabinet submission on Riverton goes next month, which is tomorrow month. We develop an extensive action plan, which is embedded in a detailed cabinet submission. Ministers delayed it for the issues to deal with shredding and disposal of tires and so on. I don't want to get into too much detail. But we have done quite a bit of work in that area along the corridor. We engage the SDC, we work with the communities. We had the full support of the security forces. I think Anthony Mackenzie gave Deon Jackson Miller that by the summer we should have already settled. We did an extensive public education campaign about the burning along the corridor. And there are some issues which I think we have to get the cabinet decision before we can finalize the plans.
Well, we have several last ones, so I'll take two more. We can start there and then come to Dion.
Thank you. Kimon Thompson from The Observer. This is for you, Mr. Shirley. What's the proposed site for the new landfill according to your feasibility study, and what will become of the current Riverton facility?
Mr. Shirley. Mr. Shirley. Mr. Shirley. Yes.
Well, first, the new location will depend on the type of equipment that will come out of the tender process to decide what acreage of land would be required, how many plants will be required at strategic location across Jamaica, so that transportation could effectively be reduced and keep the cost down from an investor's point of view. So that will come out in the RFE as to the location for the required lands. The government is prepared to provide those lands in areas that will be designated appropriately and strategically for transportation accesses. Riverton City will be, Riverton Dump will be reclaimed over a period of time. As you know, it has 40 years of dump pile-up. Several portion of methane gas, combustible gas will be there that needs to be properly managed. And the land itself, which is about 100 acres, will be reclaimed to green lands for use for the development of the community. The Prime Minister is very focused on how to look at how residents in that areas who have suffered over the period of time would be somewhat, I don't want to use the word compensated loosely, but will be assisted to reform in a proper areas of comfort for proper living and social interaction. So those areas of land, you know, also join the the belt for the port. So it's prime lands, and hopefully that when it's being reclaimed and developed, which should take over an 8-year period in a transition process, will be benefit to the community and those who would have resided in that area over the period of time. The investment required and just benchmarking a 30 megawatt plant. We are expecting that the potential investors will look at least 3 major plants. Each one of these plants would generate possible 30 megawatt per hour. Working on a 24-hour basis, we anticipate, just by calculation, that over 2,000 megawatt of energy could be given to the national grid. A megawatt of energy just for the public domain could serve very much anywhere between 600 to 1,000 residents' homes. So you can understand the impact that this could have in Jamaica's grid if the process used for conversion of waste, as it appears to be, is very financially feasible and could cut the costs of electricity tremendously. We are very positive about this initiatives that, based off the interest coming from the many investors that have shown, some of them have been out here for almost a year and a half doing studies on our waste systems. So they are very confident about the whole investment portfolio that would be required. They are very confident of, although Jamaica has a very high caloric organic waste stream, new technology today and will allow proper conversion to use the Sum 43 in our organic waste that is part of our composite of waste stream in Jamaica in a very efficient way for conversion. Possible use in combination of thermal processes and biological processes. But we are confident that waste will be able to be converted financially in Jamaica to the investor. And the collection of waste would then become a very important component to the investor, because if you are going to convert, you must have an efficient mechanism for collection. And that will drive how efficient waste will move from whether commercial sites or residential sites. I know the passion being put forward, and I share that passion about the long delay and the suffering of persons, the health, having been in health for many years. I understand the impact that the environment have on individuals and the health costs to the government because of poor environmental conditions people are exposed to and the rippling effect. So we are very conscious, very alert, very, I would say, capable of guiding the processes to ensure that environment, whatever process is being used, environment and social order in Jamaica becomes a part of the divestment process. But it's going to take, it's taking a little time because we have to be very due diligent. There's a lot of money is going to require the investor. When an investor going to invest over $2 billion in Jamaica waste, they need information. They need to know everything about our waste. They need to know who owns the waste. When they invest all these equipment, what control will they have over the waste? So all of this needs to be sorted out and is being sorted out in order to attract the investor to come to invest in their money and looking on returns while meeting all the obligations of government. So it's not a walk-through process. So bear with us, it's going to happen.
Thank you very much, sir. You're welcome. Mrs. Jackson Miller, you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Back to Mr. Gordon. Following up on the enforcement issue that Dana was following up on, when we did our interview, we were talking about littering. So let me be very clear in my question. Are you saying that you are currently ticketing people for disposing of garbage that is not containerized? 2, are you saying to Jamaicans today, you need to buy garbage bags and containerize your garbage or we will ticket you? And 3, we've heard from several agencies that one of the issues we have is that there are people, unpleasant as it is to talk about, who dispose of human waste in scandal bags. What's the thinking for dealing with that issue?
Okay. Yes, we're speaking about the Anti-Litter Act in general terms. Containerization, the public cleansing regulations is almost in hand now. It's at the Parliament, and we should be getting a piece of regulation very soon, which will put us in a position to really enforce as it relates to non-containerization, as it relates to businesses that refuse to get proper arrangements in place to move their solid waste, etc. As it relates to human waste, we deal with solid waste. We have to encounter. What I'm saying to Jamaica is support this initiative by using the alternative opportunities that are there to properly containerize your garbage.
Are you saying to Jamaicans, Mr. Gordon, buy garbage bags, containerize your garbage, or we will ticket you? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying to Jamaica.
I mean, that's a yes or no.
I'm saying to Jamaica, get on board with the better solid waste management practices that obtains elsewhere. Treat with solid waste as you have a duty to properly containerize it. There are alternative methods that you can use other than the scandal bags. Get on board, use those alternative arrangements.
Answer my question, please. I'm asking if you intend to ticket Jamaicans who don't buy
We will
bags.
enforce the anti-litter law. We will be, as we have been doing, enforce the anti-litter law.
I want to thank members of the media, stakeholders, and the general public for coming out to listen to our press conference. Thank members of the panel as well. The conversation continues. There are refreshments outside, so you can take part. Thank you.